Hello, my beautiful children, and thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Miss Vega Says What. I'm Miss Vega, and I've missed you since I last saw you in my last video. I have been a teacher for nearly 20 years, and I am finishing a degree in psychology. I am so thankful for you watching my channel, liking, subscribing, and sharing with your friends. Thank you so much. Today's episode is about your brain space. Okay, so I'm going to try to refrain from using really heavy academic language because I don't really want you guys so worried on what these things are actually called in the science behind psychology, so much as I want you to see how they affect you when you're in the classroom, okay? Or when you're in class and learning. Okay, so here we are. This is you. You look so cute. It looks just like you. And this is the universal symbol for thinking, right? So I'm going to explain some things that happen within your brain space, okay? I want to say that I'm going to use the example of math as for like a math mindset. And the reason I'm going to do that is because as a teacher, I've seen that this is really frequent during math concepts or math class in kids. So I'm just going to use the example of math class, but if that doesn't resonate for you and you're a great mathematician and math is where you're most successful, just think of another class, okay? Okay, so here you are, and I'm gonna draw a split, okay, in your brain space. This is not literal. This is not like the actual science, okay? This is just me trying to kidify it for you so you understand the way that you're thinking and how it may be affecting your learning. Okay, so we're gonna split your thinking, and everybody, your mom, your dad, myself, everybody has both a conscious mind, which is what you're consciously thinking of, and a subconscious mind, okay? So that's not to say that your brain is like split in two in this way, and it's not related necessarily to like your right hemisphere and left hemisphere type stuff. It's not about that. But again, don't worry so much about that kind of science. I just want you to see what I mean as far as like a math mindset, okay? So let me look down at my notes. What I'm gonna begin with is saying that when you are in math class, I'm gonna put it like, here's the subject, right? It's going to be like an app that's open in your brain. You can think of it as an app that's open in your brain or as a tab that's open on your computer. I'm gonna say apps probably for the remaining, for the remainder of the video. So here's your app. It's called Math Class. So you're sitting in math class and then your app is open and everybody has this, right? You, without thinking about it, another app opens for you guys, and it's kind of a soundtrack of an app, right? And you can think of it as when you're playing on an app, or you have a tab open and then you have another app, which would be Spotify, and so you're listening to music and playing on another app, or you have Spotify open on your computer and you're working on another tab, right? So here's your Spotify app. And the thing about it is you might not even remember when you opened it, or you might not even remember that it's there. Like the music is like, you know, it's kind of just become you, right? Like you don't even notice that the music is on. So this little app is kind of like a soundtrack, right? So when you guys are in math class, your subconscious mind starts to do a little soundtrack, and it goes like this. Everybody gets it but me, okay? I'm just gonna put everybody, like shorthand it, everybody gets it but me, or oh my gosh, this is too hard, or I can't, I've missed one step and it's already over, or like I'm so lost, right? So you're in math class and you're in math class trying to pretend, well, yeah, kind of trying to pretend, but you're in math class trying to pay attention to what your teacher is saying to you. But a little app has opened And this app right here is kind of like tracking, right? Like how apps track our activity without our permission or without us being consciously like, I'm gonna let this app track what I like and what I don't like. It just happens, right? So this is just born. It's born within your brain. So again, I'm using math class because I see it the most in math class as a teacher. And so you're in math class, and then the soundtrack is everybody gets it but me, everybody gets it but me, everybody gets it but me, right? Or whatever it is that you might say to yourself. The thing about it is that this music, it's not actual music, but the music starts to take over. And instead of playing the app that you're wanting to play, you're really focused on your Spotify. Or instead of being on the tab that you need to be working on, Spotify, the song is just like really talking to you, and your attention isn't here where it's supposed to be, because that's what you're supposed to be conscious of. So your attention isn't here because this eventually gets too loud. I think that probably in ages like 9 through 14, this can take over a little bit for y'all. So let me help you, okay? So this is just born, right? Like just like tracking apps, or I don't know if they're apps or whatever, but just like how apps track you and you haven't chosen to do that, that's what's happening here. And I did choose to draw it this way, not necessarily because it resembles an app, but because it's a loop. And in psychology, in the science of psychology, they do call it a loop. So it's like you're listening to the same song over and over in your soundtrack, which is everybody can do it but me, everybody can do it but me. And you have that going in the back of your mind, which is your subconscious mind, and you're trying to pay attention to math class, but it gets loud, right? I do also want to say that grown-ups refer to this as kind of bandwidth because they have a lot of apps open, and every app opens a Spotify, okay? Or it opens like a soundtrack. So grown-ups call this bandwidth, or they say like, oh, I don't have the bandwidth. And that's because, let's say it's their job, there's a lot of songs going on, okay? So that's the phrase bandwidth. If you've ever heard a grown-up say like, oh my gosh, I don't have the bandwidth to deal with this right now. That's what you guys are essentially taking up all your bandwidth by singing these songs to yourself that everybody gets it but me. Oh my gosh, I'm lost. I missed one step and now I can't. Whatever it is that you say to yourself. I really don't even want to give too many examples because I don't want to put those songs in your head. Okay, so the first part to this, to resolving this, right? Now that you know what I'm talking about and you're like, oh my gosh, I totally say that when I'm sitting in math class, like everybody gets it but me. Now that you understand that, you've actually done the first step, because the first step is to become aware that we do that. So at some point when I've been explaining it, you've probably been like, oh, I do that. Oh, I do say that in my head. Or you've corrected me and said, no, I don't say that, but I say this. And it's a negative thing, right? We're talking about negative things for right now. Okay, so what you want to do with this is you want to, first step, recognize that the song is on, you're on that loop, the everybody gets it but me loop. And so when you recognize that, it's going to put you back into math class, okay? Or what is called in spirituality, the now moment. Right here, you're not in the present moment. You're not in, this might be too advanced, so I might skip it, but it's going to put you back into being present with math class and what your teacher is saying, okay? And here's the thing. Some of you guys have certain songs where you have backup singers. And by that, I mean this. You might sing songs like, but my teacher says I'm this, right? Like you're paying attention to the lesson, and in the back of your mind, you're like, my teacher said I was this. My mom said I was this. My teacher said I was this, and it is a loop, right? So you see math, you play the song. You play the song, you see the math. It's a loop within your brain. So if you do have a phrase that you're accidentally saying to yourself when you're in math class, you definitely want to be aware of that. If you are using the words of another person, And this isn't to say the person isn't right or the person is a bad person, but you're taking on, you're forming a thought pattern that can become really unhealthy and kind of negative in your later years. So you want to start to become aware of it. So even if it's like your teacher and you're like, okay, I'm in math class, my teacher said I suck at this, and you're just doing the dance like, I suck at this, math class, I suck at the first step is, oh, I'm singing that song, I'm doing that loop, whatever it is that you want to say to yourself. And then you're going to go back and pay attention to what your teacher is saying, okay? For some of you, it'll help to take a breath between doing this, like, I was singing that song, okay, what's she talking about now? This doesn't mean that that because you become aware of this, you're automatically gonna like all of a sudden understand everything, but it is gonna help you understand, because again, it's your bandwidth, right? And you're clearing up bandwidth here to use here, right? So the bandwidth that you were using on your Spotify, now it's gonna go into the app that you're supposed to be on, and it's gonna run faster and better. Okay, so once if you do become able to recognize this voice in your head, like, oh, my teacher said I suck at math, it's because you seeing math is going to play that song for you. Oh, my teacher says I suck at math. Okay, I suck at math, I suck, math, I suck, right? So first step, recognize that. Then it is difficult to stop that song for some people, okay? But you recognizing it is you stopping that song. So once you recognize it, you stop the song, you go back to math class or the present moment, the now moment. And then over time, you're going to change this loop into a positive feedback, right? It's going to take some time. I shouldn't say that, but it can take some time, right? So you're going to maybe move from like, everybody gets it but me, to something that's like, that's not even true. OMG, it's not that urgent. Okay, maybe my teacher did say that, but I can still try, right? So first step, become aware. Becoming aware is basically stopping it. And then the next step is to say no to those thoughts, to argue them out. Like, no, everybody doesn't actually get it. That's not true. Like, and that's the truth. Like, if you were to look around in your class, because I know everybody gets it but me is a really common one. If you were to really look around in your class and be like, do they get it? They don't get it, okay? Not everybody gets it. It's just a song that you sing. So you want to start replacing it, right, with like logic. You can reason it out like, that's not true. Everybody doesn't get it. And then over time, or however long it takes you, you're then going to start filling, you're going to basically change the station on your Spotify app here to something more encouraging or positive, like, okay, I can try it though. And then you go back to math. All right, it's not that bad. And then you go back to math, okay? So I do want to say that. And if it seems kind of peculiar to you, I doubt that it will, because when I've taught this to kids, you guys get it so quickly. But to make another point, I'm going to change it, okay? About how you do a little soundtrack to everything. And the thing is, when you're in math class, you have math class app, you have crush app, you have what's for dinner app, or what are we gonna do in PE app, right? And they all have their own little songs. So if I were to change that from math class to like Friends, you do have a soundtrack. You just don't notice it as much because it's kind of a bop. Like, it's not beating you up or saying negative things to you, or maybe if your friends are, or you and your friends are going through something, maybe. But like, if you bring your attention to, oh, my friends, and then you're like, oh yeah, they're so cool, and we did this, right? It's the same concept. It's still your Spotify, but it's just happier. And then I'll change it to crush, right? Like, if you're thinking about your crush, your soundtrack is going to be totally different than what it is whenever you are in math class. Like, in math class, like, it's just going to be different. Maybe it will be actual songs, like if you're really smitten or whatever, it's just going to be different wording. But you'll notice that it's still the same, like it's a loop. Like, oh my gosh, he's so cute. Oh, he did this, he's so cute. And you see him and he's so cute. It's still a loop. it's just more neutral feeling to you. But I do want to say that this does affect your bodily response when you're in math class, right? Because if you're doing this and you're like, everybody gets it but me. Oh God, my teacher thinks I'm dumb and I still have to do this and blah, blah. It's gonna give you a bodily response. Your body's gonna not feel good. And if your body's not feeling good, it's not an optimal time to be learning, okay? And I wanna leave you with a little thing that's gonna show you the difference, or show you the difference in what I mean. Because I've been talking about math class, the class. But if you actually take out class and just think about math itself, your soundtrack might be totally different. Like, I wonder this, or I wonder that, or I wonder where the word Google came from, whatever. Those are still mathematical concepts, right? So it's important that you become aware of your dialogue when you're in a math class, because you don't want to equate that to math itself, okay? Math itself might actually be more digestible to you than math class, because the class, you're being graded and your teacher and you're comparing yourself to your friends. But when you think of just like math itself, or maybe you don't, your soundtrack is a little bit softer. Okay, well, that is today's episode. That's today's episode on brain space, on how your brain space works, right? And so just again, think about it. This is the app that I'm or the tab that I'm showing you, but you guys know good and well that you have a lot of apps open at the same time, or a lot of tabs open at the same time. So that's why adults use the phrase bandwidth. I'm using just one to explain, but you actually have like a lot of apps open right now, like your crush, your friends, your dinner, whatever. And then they also have their subconscious like loop or soundtrack. Thank you guys for watching my video. And again, the next time you're in the class that really kind of like makes you feel down about yourself, try it, right? Like, oh man, what is my soundtrack? What am I saying to myself over and over? And you're not gonna beat yourself up like, I can't believe I've been saying this to myself over and over. It's not that, because it's not that you've chosen to be negative toward yourself. It's just how the human brain works. It's just born. And oftentimes, like in math class, when you feel a sense of pressure or a sense that you have to perform in a certain way, that'll definitely kick up your Spotify app into something you really shouldn't be thinking. Okay, my beautiful babies, I freaking love you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and please share with a friend. Thank you.